Hi, you're on the Storm to Truth channel. Enjoy your watching. I think I've wasted my entire life, and I don't say that lightly. My name's Brian. I'm 45 years old, and for the longest time, I convinced myself that I had everything a man could want, at least on paper. Good job, beautiful wife, 2 kids, and a house that looks like it belongs in one of those magazines. But behind closed doors, things are falling apart, and I've been too blind, or maybe too scared, to admit it. I'm a financial analyst, which sounds impressive, but it's never been my passion. I fell into it because it paid well and kept my parents happy. You know how it is, safe career, good salary, stability. I met my wife, Amanda, when I was 23, fresh out of college, full of hope and big dreams. Amanda was gorgeous, tall, blonde, and had this confidence that drew people in. I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world when we got together. Fast forward 20 years, and now I'm in a place where I feel stuck. My job drains me, my body aches from sitting at a desk all day, and I'm pretty sure my wife is cheating on me. How do I know? Well, I've been paying attention, slyly keeping track of her little changes in behavior. But I haven't confronted her. Not yet. It started a year ago. Amanda began working out more, dressing nicer, and spending more time out of the house. She'd come home late, always with some excuse about work or meeting up with friends. At first, I believed her. She's a successful interior designer, so it made sense that she'd have long days with clients or networking events. But then I noticed how she guarded her phone like it was a part of her body. We used to have open communication. We'd laugh, joke, talk about our days. Now, she's distant, her phone glued to her hand, her face lighting up with smiles that I haven't seen in years. But those smiles aren't for me. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to admit that my marriage was crumbling right before my eyes. So I started being more observant, more strategic. I didn't ask her where she was going anymore, because I didn't need to. I began tracking her without her knowing. I remember the first time I followed her. She said she had a late meeting downtown, so I told her I'd be home with the kids. But after she left, I decided to see for myself. I waited 10 minutes before hopping in my car and driving in the same direction she had gone. Sure enough, she wasn't heading to her supposed meeting. She parked outside a restaurant on the other side of town, far from where she normally works, and I watched her walk inside with a man I didn't recognize. They laughed together, clearly comfortable with each other, and I felt like I had been punched in the gut. But I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready. I kept playing the long game, letting her believe I was oblivious. I needed more. More proof. More certainty before I made my move. Last week, it all came to a head. Amanda's phone buzzed while she was in the shower. I couldn't resist. I picked it up and saw the name Chris flash on the screen. The message? Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. There it was, in black and white. She was cheating on me, and it was right in front of my face. My heart raced, but I stayed calm. I didn't want to confront her without a plan. So, I deleted the message and left the phone exactly as I found it. I spent the next few days pretending everything was normal, but inside, I was boiling. I felt betrayed, humiliated. This woman, the one I'd built my life around, was lying to me, sneaking around behind my back, and I was supposed to just act like nothing was happening? So, I did what any man in my situation might do. I started planning my own form of revenge. The other day, Amanda mentioned that she was going out with the girls for dinner, but I already knew she wasn't. I had placed a GPS tracker on her car the week before, and that night, I decided to watch her movements. Sure enough, she wasn't heading to any dinner. She drove to Chris's place. I wasn't shocked this time. In fact, I was oddly calm, like all the emotions had drained out of me. I watched her stay there for hours, not moving a muscle. My mind was racing, but one thing became crystal clear. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. When she got home that night, I didn't say a word. She walked in, smiled like everything was fine, and I smiled back. But inside, I was already planning my exit. I'd had enough. Amanda didn't know it yet, but I was about to leak everything she had been hiding. I knew I couldn't confront her directly. She'd lie, twist the truth, try to deceive me like she had been doing for months. No, I had to be smarter than that. So I'm setting things in motion quietly behind the scenes, gathering more evidence, preparing my case. And when I'm ready, she won't even see it coming. I'm done being the fool. She can keep playing her game, but soon, Everyone will know who she really is. I just have to wait for the right moment. And as for me, I've wasted too much time chasing money, stability, and a family life that wasn't real. My kids are teenagers now, and they barely talk to me. They've always gravitated toward Amanda, and I can't blame them. But I'm done living for everyone else's expectations. I'm starting over, even if it means walking away from everything. I'll be fine, eventually, but Amanda? She has no idea what's coming. After seeing that message from Chris on her phone, something shifted inside me. I wasn't the same man I had been before. Every time Amanda smiled at me, every time she touched my arm or made small talk about her day, it felt fake, like a bad performance that I could see through. But I didn't show it. I kept playing my role as the oblivious husband, while silently observing her every move. I don't know if you've ever felt the weight of suspicion like I did back then, but it's like a constant knot in your gut that you can't untangle. Everything Amanda did now seemed like evidence. She'd laugh too loudly at a text, leave the room to take a phone call, and I knew exactly what was going on, but I wasn't going to tip my hand yet. The late nights continued. More meetings, more girl nights, and every time she left the house, I tracked her. That GPS tracker was my secret weapon. It let me see the truth without her even knowing I was on to her. It wasn't just Chris's house she was visiting. Sometimes they'd meet at different places, quiet restaurants, parts where no one would recognize them. It all lined up perfectly, like puzzle pieces falling into place. The late-night texts, the guarded phone, the unexplained absences, they weren't just coincidences. It was clear now that Amanda had checked out of our marriage long ago. I'd just been too blind to see it. I remember one night vividly. She had told me she was going out with a couple of friends from work, but I knew better. After she left, I watched her location on my laptop. Sure enough, she drove straight to Chris's place. I had the address memorized by now. I sat there, staring at the blinking dot on the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. My mind was screaming at me to do something, to confront her, to catch them in the act. But I didn't. Not yet. I wanted her to think she was in control. I wanted her to keep believing that she was getting away with it. Meanwhile, I was laying the groundwork for something much bigger than a simple confrontation. I was going to tear her world apart, but it had to be done right. In the weeks that followed, Amanda became bolder. She no longer bothered hiding her phone from me as much. Maybe because she thought I had stopped caring, or maybe she believed she was clever enough to keep me in the dark. But I was 2 steps ahead. I knew every lie, every time she snuck out, and every time she crawled back into bed after being with him. She had no idea that I had already backed up her messages and photos. I'd found a way to mirror her phone to my own, and I had full access to everything. Every sweet message, every promise she made to Chris about how she was planning to leave me soon. It was all there, laid out in front of me. I stayed quiet. I knew she would try to manipulate me if I confronted her too soon. Amanda was a master at deception. She could spin any situation to make herself the victim. I wasn't going to give her that opportunity. The tipping point came when she mentioned a weekend business trip. It was an annual conference she had attended before, so it didn't raise any red flags. But this time, I knew better. The night before her trip, I overheard a conversation between her and Chris. I had planted a tiny recorder in her car months ago, and it had picked up everything. She was telling him how excited she was about spending the weekend together, just the two of them, away from the complications of her home life. That was it. I had heard enough. I smiled to myself as she packed her bags, pretending to be the supportive husband, wishing her a safe trip. She kissed me goodbye, completely unaware that her betrayal was about to be exposed in a way she could never have imagined. She thought she had control. But now it was my turn. Amanda left for her so-called business trip that Friday afternoon, bags packed and a smile on her face, as if everything was perfectly normal. She kissed me on the cheek, saying, "I'll miss you," like she hadn't been lying to me for months. It took everything in me to not show my hand, but I kept up the act, wishing her a safe trip, telling her I'd hold down the fort with the kids. As soon as she left, I sat down at the kitchen table, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it, the point of no return. I had been collecting evidence for weeks, photos, text messages, GPS data, recordings, everything I needed. Now it was time to use it. I wasn't going to confront her with just words. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her actions, and I wanted everyone around us to know the truth. Quietly, I gathered all the evidence into a neat digital folder. I labeled it simply, Amanda's Lies. The weekend she was away, I started making my moves. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. I needed to know exactly what my options were. I wasn't going to rush into divorce blindly. I wanted to make sure I had the upper hand. I booked a meeting for the following week, but before that, there were a few other things I needed to handle. Next, I called Chris's wife. Yeah, that's right. He wasn't some bachelor living a carefree life. He was married, too. I found out after doing a bit of digging on social media, seeing a few family pictures of him and his wife, Lauren. They had 2 kids, just like Amanda and I. It wasn't hard to get Lauren's number. I wasn't planning to blow things up over the phone. That would be too easy. Instead, I decided to play it smart, to slowly unravel everything in front of both of them. "Hi, Lauren," I said when she answered. My voice was calm, steady. "I think you deserve to know something about your husband and my wife. Can we meet?" There was silence on the other end for a moment before she responded. "What are you talking about?" "I'm sorry to bring this to you like this," I said, "but I think you'll want to see what I've found. Let's meet tomorrow. I'll send you the details." I could hear the fear and confusion in her voice, but she agreed. She had no idea what was coming, but by the time we were done, her life and Chris's would never be the same. The next day, while Amanda was off enjoying her weekend with Chris, I met Lauren at a small cafe just outside of town. She looked nervous when she walked in, and I could tell she wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't waste time. I slid my laptop across the table and opened the folder with all the evidence. Messages, photos, location data, even recordings from Amanda's car. It was all there, laid out for her to see. Lauren's face went pale as she scrolled through the messages between her husband and Amanda. There was disbelief at first, followed by anger, and finally, sadness. I let her take it all in without saying much. After all, I knew exactly how she felt. It was the same storm of emotions I had been dealing with for months. "I don't understand," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "How long has this been going on?" 6 months, at least, I said quietly, watching her reaction. "Maybe longer." She shook her head, clearly still processing everything. "What are we going to do?" I leaned back in my chair, feeling the cold, calculated part of myself taking over. "We're not going to do anything. They are. They just don't know it yet." After leaving the cafe, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Everything was finally coming together. I had Lauren on my side now, and together, we were going to destroy their little fantasy. But there was still more to do. That night, I sent out a few emails, one to Amanda's boss, detailing how she had been using business trips to cover up her affair. I attached some of the evidence, knowing it would spread like wildfire through her workplace. Then I sent an anonymous tip to a few of our mutual friends, linking them to the digital folder I had created. I knew people love gossip, and once they saw what Amanda had been up to, there would be no stopping the rumor mill. She had built a life on lies, and I was about to tear it all down in one swift motion. The final piece of the puzzle came on Sunday night. I knew Amanda would be driving back home after her weekend with Chris, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit. But before she made it back, I set everything in place for the grand finale. I called her parents. Now, Amanda and her parents had always been close, and I knew they would be devastated by what she had done. I didn't want to be the one to break their hearts, but they needed to know the truth. I told them everything. At first, they didn't believe me. Who wants to believe their daughter could do something like this? But after I sent them the proof, they were silent. Her father mumbled something about needing to talk to her before hanging up. I felt bad, sure, but not enough to stop what I was doing. Amanda needed to face the consequences of her choices. And soon, everyone in her life would know exactly who she was. Sunday night arrived, and so did Amanda. She walked in with the same casual smile she always wore after one of her business trips, dropping her bag by the door, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. I watched her move around the house, humming softly, like nothing had changed. It was strange to see how calm she was, while I was sitting on a volcano of emotions ready to explode. I stayed quiet, letting her have a normal evening. I wanted her to feel comfortable, to believe that she was still in control. That's when I struck. Around 9 p.m., after the kids had gone to bed, I sat Amanda down at the kitchen table. She looked at me with mild curiosity, maybe sensing that something was off, but she still had no idea what was coming. "Brian, what's up?" she asked, her voice sweet, as if she didn't have a care in the world. I slid my phone across the table, the screen displaying one of the text messages from Chris. "Explain this," I said, my voice ice cold. Amanda's face drained of color instantly. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to me, searching for a way out. I could see the panic rising in her as she struggled to come up with a lie. But I didn't let her speak. "Don't even try to deny it, Amanda. I know everything. The texts, the trips, the hotel visits. I've been watching you for months." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She blinked, clearly trying to find her footing, but she was too stunned to speak. "I've got it all," I continued, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Your little fling with Chris, it's all documented. I've been collecting evidence this whole time, and I've already shared it with a few people." Her eyes widened in shock. You shared it? What do you mean, shared it?" "I told his wife," I said flatly, watching her face crumble. "Lauren knows everything, and she's not the only one. I sent it to your boss, too. Your parents. Our friends. Pretty much everyone who matters." Amanda's hand flew to her mouth, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "Brian, please. I can explain." "No," I said, cutting her off sharply. "There's nothing to explain. You lied to me. For months, you snuck around behind my back while I was here with the kids, working to keep this family together. You thought you could deceive me, but you've underestimated me." I knew Amanda. I knew everything. Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "Brian, I never meant for it to get this far. I didn't mean to hurt you." The audacity of her words made me laugh. "You didn't mean to hurt me? You've been meeting him in hotels while I've been here, making excuses for you. You've been lying to my face, and you think you didn't mean to hurt me?" She collapsed into sobs, but I felt nothing. The sympathy I might have had for her was long gone, burned away by months of betrayal. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I continued, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. "I've started the divorce process. I've also started moving money into a separate account. You'll get the papers in the next few days." Amanda's sobs grew louder as she tried to reach for me again, pleading now. "Brian, please. Don't do this. We can work through this. I made a mistake, but we can fix it, I swear. I'll end it with Chris. "No, Amanda," I said, standing up and walking away from the table. "There's no fixing this. You destroyed our marriage the moment you decided to betray me. I'm done." She kept begging, following me as I moved to the living room, but I didn't listen. Her apologies, her excuses, they all meant nothing to me now. I was already checked out. The next morning, the fallout began. Amanda's phone blew up with messages and calls from her family, friends, and colleagues, all wanting to know what had happened. I watched as she tried to put out fires, but there was no stopping it. The truth was out, and the damage was done. Her parents called, furious and heartbroken, demanding answers. Her boss reached out, asking if what he'd seen was real, and warning her about the consequences of her actions. Our friends, people we had known for years, were shocked, some distancing themselves from her entirely. Amanda was drowning in the mess she had created. And then came Lauren. She showed up at our door, furious and emotional. She confronted Amanda, demanding to know why she had wrecked both of our families. Amanda could barely get a word out, caught in the crossfire of Lauren's anger and my cold indifference. I stood back, watching as the life Amanda had carefully crafted came crashing down around her. Chris was nowhere to be found, of course. Coward. He probably realized what was coming and bolted the moment everything hit the fan. By the end of that week, Amanda was a shell of the person she had been. She tried to apologize, tried to make amends, but I wasn't having it. I had already moved out of the bedroom, staying in the guest room while we sorted out the details of the divorce. The kids knew something was wrong, but we hadn't broken the news to them yet. I wanted to keep them out of it as long as possible. It's strange, the sense of relief I felt as everything unfolded. For so long, I had been living in doubt, wondering if I was imagining things, wondering if my marriage could be saved. But now, the truth was out, and I was finally free. Free from the lies. Free from the deception. Free from the marriage that had been built on nothing but false promises. Amanda's world had collapsed, and I had no regrets. She had played me for a fool, but in the end, I had been the one pulling the strings. Now it was time for me to rebuild my life, on my terms. As for Amanda, she was left with the ruins of the life she had so recklessly destroyed. That's the end of the story. Thank you very much for watching. If you are interested in something, leave a comment under the video, like it, and subscribe to the channel so that you don't lose it. New videos